Hello and welcome to the Evolution of the Fempreneur podcast, the go-to resource for women who want to grow a successful business. Our mission is to empower and support women on their entrepreneurial journeys by providing valuable insights, practical tips, and a supportive community of like-minded women. Each episode of the Evolution of the Fempreneur podcast features interviews with successful fempreneurs, business experts, and thought leaders, as well as a solo episode from our host. That's me, Wonderful Morrison, brand and marketing coach, business expert, and online business educator. If you're already on your entrepreneurial journey and seeking to take your business to the next level, the Evolution of the Fempreneur podcast has something for you. Join our community of empowered women and gain the knowledge, skills, and confidence you need to succeed in your entrepreneurial endeavors. Thank you for tuning in to the Evolution of the Fempreneur podcast. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Evolution of the Fempreneur, and where we gather with women of a certain age to share with each other the way that life has evolved for us in profession and in a personal world, in today's ever-evolving marketplace, business world, because the truth is a transformed world needs new transformed leaders. And with us today is an amazing person I met through a great group that I've been a part of for a few years now. And when she described to me why she got into the industry that she got into, I thought, I got to have her on here to speak to my audience, because we are also a very unique generation of women who are caring for our elderly parents. And where do we go for this type of support, understanding, not just from a physical space, but from a legal matter? So without further ado, I want to introduce you my friend Holly, who is sort of the Pied Piper of support when it comes to taking care of our elderly parents from a legal standpoint. So without further ado, welcome, Holly.
Hi, thank you.
So please tell us, as our generation, which is considered perennial ageless generation of 40 plus women, we have a very unique set of spaces where the majority of us are caring for our elderly parents. And when I met you and you had said that you've got into law for that specific reason, tell us a little bit more about that. How did it evolve? Where did it come from?
Well, prior to becoming a lawyer, I was a certified professional guardian. Probably not many folks have heard of that. But that is a person who is appointed by the courts to provide decision-making for individuals who lack decisional capacity. And usually those are elderly folks with dementia, or maybe they're people with some type of disability. And for many years, I ran an agency where the agency acted as the guardian, the person who made the decision, or decisions, we should say. And those folks who come into guardianship they're in a tough spot in their life. The court doesn't often appoint a guardian for somebody in that situation unless there's some pretty big problems. And some of those problems might be that there's just not a family member who's living in the area who can provide the services, or a lot of times it's that these folks have been abandoned, or they've experienced abuse or neglect, and often at the hands of a family member. So it's that point at which the guardian will step in and take over the care and the decision making. And that means getting the person into a safe environment. If somebody's stealing their money, then putting a stop to that, protecting their funds and their assets, and possibly taking legal action if needed to recover their assets, or for their own protection, or for a lot of reasons. So for many years, this is what I did. And that's a real kind of boots on the ground advocacy, I like to call it, where I'm out in the community very regularly, interacting with all sorts of people, trying to provide resources for these folks. And I decided after many years that I didn't want to do that forever. I guess it's just taking that life inventory and saying, hey, you know, is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? And the answer came back no. And, you know, what was it? Because I still cared a lot about the older folks and how to help them and how to help their families help them. And so I decided, I think I was about 48 maybe, I decided to go back to law school, or not go back to law school, but to go to law school. I wanted to go to law school way back when I first completed my undergraduate degree, but you know, as life would have it, I got married and had a couple kids, and then it was like, well, what is law school? You know, when you're in baby mode and toddler mode, it's like you can't, or at least for me.
I mean, it's consuming too, right? Like school in general. When you have a dog, it's consuming, let alone little humans that depend on you.
Yeah, and it was hard. I mean, for me, I wanted to be with the kids a lot when they were little and do the mom things, you know, be the classroom mom and go on the field trips and things like that. And I did that for many years until the kids were older. And then I started doing guardianship and started working on a career. And as my kids grew, you know, they've also worked for me too, especially my son. He worked at the guardianship agency for many years, from the time he was 14 on to till I ended up selling that business, and he was typing up correspondence and reports for the court as he got older and stuff. So I mean, it was really, you know, a family affair, so to speak.
But what an incredible skill set for him to learn too, right? Especially at that young age, and to see sort of a, I don't want to just, it's kind of harsh to say, but sort of to see a dismissed group of people by the eye of the general public, right? Because we know they're, like, what I know for sure is that the baby boomer generation is one of the largest generations to exist. And they're the ones experiencing this right now, is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, and I just want to retract for the audience. I hope you heard her say she decided to go to law school at 48. So for any of you out there who's like, you know, I don't know, my time has passed. Like, I don't think so, because were you still working your agency at the same time you were in school, or had you already sold it and then went to school?
Well, I would like to also say that I was not the oldest person in my class either. So there were folks that were even older than me in going back to law school. So it's not too late. But, you know, I had an arrangement made to sell my business about the time I started law school. So that fell through. And so I did continue running the agency for about another year until I got another deal put together where I was able to sell the agency. I also have run a second business, which is a nonprofit corporation, where I acted as a fiduciary as far as being a trustee or an estate administrator. And I continued to run that business through law school and work as a paralegal, but that business was much smaller than the guardianship. But I still continued to be trustee for my folks who I had been trustee for. And then I've just recently, I graduated from law school in December 21, and I'm pretty much wound down, yay, on that other business now. So trying to not take on too much, but
well, I mean, yeah,
to be doing what I'm doing, because I think that I can help people sooner in this role as an attorney. And, you know, not everybody is going to be a person who needs somebody like a guardian to come in and help them out. But in this role, I have a chance to help people sooner, get estate planning done,
Right.
your documents or directives in order to, or trusts established to, that would work to facilitate an alternative to guardianship if that kind of need
Yeah.
ever arose. And I also still have the opportunity from being an attorney to help those folks who really need it, to help
Right.
folks that need that extra protection through the law that the law provides. So
Right. Well, I mean, because I think I've heard enough stories of, you know, when people have multiple children, one of the children will slyly take a chunk of money, and then when that parent needs the care and the
yeah,
cost of care and it's not there, right? How do you recoup that, or where do you even go for that kind of support, which I think is again, it's sort of like out of sight, out of mind, right? Because it's not
right.
something we talk about so regularly out into the world. But I think it's an important conversation, because again, you know, I I was fortunate enough when I was taking care of my mom that we already went and sought legal support early on,
Yeah,
before she was incoherent, so that it was done all through what she desired, not what we wanted. Um,
right.
so with that, as the world is transitioning and being transformed by this past pandemic situation, do you see this becoming a, you know, because a lot of language out right now too is about our mental health. It's really much more of a forefront conversation than it had been in ever in the history of humankind, where mental health is something that we're caring about, that we have resources for. And with the elderly, that's also an additional piece as they're moving into housing, or like you said, the extreme side of being neglected, abused by the hands of their own family member, that type of thing. How do you see it from your perspective as an attorney to not bring this with you, right? Like as a personal thing, because these are heavier subjects that you can't just wash your hands off, even though you have set office hours.
Right. Well, I often said to myself and to my associates when running the guardianship business, and it still applies today, the days themselves are long and sometimes very difficult, and the progress is slow. But when you look back over 6 months or a year, you can say, well, look how many people we've helped. Look what all we've done.
Yeah.
And at that point, it really makes it worth it. The days themselves, you're not going to get a lot of instant gratification out of the each day by day, but it can be a really slow slog, but it's worth it. Every few months when you can say, hey, we really helped this person, or
right,
really did this great thing. And there's just more of it. I mean, it was intensified during COVID, because all the folks in the care facilities, you probably heard the news where it was even harder on them because they couldn't have
right,
family members, and people were having problems visiting folks in the hospitals that were, family members that were needing care in the hospitals. And I mean, I had the same thing happen where my husband needed a bypass surgery during COVID, and I was only able to go to visit him like twice in 2 weeks for in the hospital. So it was really tough on people and really tough on families.
right.
And the hospitals and the care facilities, they really they filed a lot more petitions to start guardianships to keep people out of their hospitals, because it just wasn't as safe for people to be there with the
because they're the most
going around.
susceptible. Yeah, it's the most susceptible group of people in the healthcare space.
Yeah, in the hospitals and the nursing homes, if there's folks in their care that lack decisional capacity, and there's not an available person, like a person with the power of attorney or a family member to make decisions, then, the hospital's in a tough spot to discharge that person. So, that's how a lot of guardianship petitions get started. So.
Oh, wow. So that's all such great information, especially, again, like I said, it's not as easily accessible as some other things that we know of. But so it kind of goes into my next question is, as the majority of the audience are entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs, we talk often about wealth because that's just part of the game. But it's interesting to hear from different guests what wealth to them is today versus what it was when we were in our 20s or in our 30s, right? And you're seeing a different space of it because it's more of the latter years of people's lives where wealth isn't necessarily the thing that they're trying to chase down. It's how that wealth can provide more care for their space. But the world of law and attorney, that's like big money sector, right? There people pay a lot of money for lawyers and things like that. So there's all of this. So based on your experience now, having moved from one arena of that same industry to another, how do you define wealth today?
Well, I mean, when I went to law school, I was 48. Like I said, I had been running successful businesses for many years. And so law school wasn't a struggle for me financially. Plus, I got a really good scholarship. So I'm approaching, I started this off at a time in my life when I had more the resources to do it. And said, well, what do I want to do with these resources? How do I make a difference, not just for myself and my family, but how do I continue to make a difference in my career? Because I always feel, and I've always felt that, there's got to be some kind of intrinsic value to what I'm doing, other than just bringing home a paycheck and, having some money to buy dinner or
right,
buy a new Xbox or something. So, it was like, well, how am I gonna really put this wealth to work for me personally in my life, and what matters to me? And that's what matters to me is still having a career that, everybody who has a career, and particularly if you're self-employed, you spend a lot of your time doing it. And if I'm going to spend that much time doing it, I want it to have meaning to me personally and be something that, I'm passionate about. So,
which impacts the community that you're supporting, right? And I think too, in your line of industry or line of work is, you are seeing sort of the closer edge of life for most people. And they probably see wealth completely differently, and kind of seeps into your idea of wealth creation and wealth acquisition and that type of thing. So if there's somebody listening and says, oh my gosh, I am a candidate for this. Like I am right now caring for my parents, and I don't know where to begin in terms of how. Let's look at it from two perspectives. One where it's just a normal type of relationship. There's nothing really chaotic around it other than aging and healthcare plan for the near future. What would you suggest for them? What would be the first 3 steps from ground zero that they should take in that type of environment?
Well, from a legal perspective, definitely for the aging parent is to have executed documents that reflect your wishes for your care and who's going to be the one caring for you. So those are like powers of attorney for healthcare and financial. Also, there's advanced healthcare directives that you can decide how you want your treatment for certain advanced stages of illness. So what kind of treatment is important for you? So those are the kind of things that are important for this age group. And there does become a point when people lose capacity to execute these documents. They lose the legal capacity to be able to do it. So it's, you know, people, especially with estate planning and things like that, you think, wow, it's easy to put off. You know, it's like,
right.
That's not for me. That's not going to happen to me. But it's a good thing to do before you lose the ability to do it.
But I like what you said. Can we circle back to that? I like what you said is that they could lose the capacity from a legal perspective. It may not even be on a physical perspective, but there is an expiration for the legal aspect of it, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
I think that's another big piece, because I think that's the case is like, oh, I'm fine. Because I mean, I know enough parents who are, you can see the slow progress of dementia, but in their heart of heart, it's like, it's just age. I'm just forgetting things.
Right.
So I think that legal aspect is a big piece to it, of there is an expiration to that execution by law.
Right. There's definitely an expiration date and legal standards, and they're different from medical standards. Oftentimes legal standards will look at medical opinions from doctors, but ultimately, you know, there's legal standards, and
yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah, so
I think that, yeah,
good to execute these documents, get your wishes in paper before there's any question. Because one of the things I do as an attorney is litigate the validity of documents. You know, did the person have the capacity to execute this document? Is it really effective? You know, sometimes people will issue documents 1 year and then they might change their mind, you know, several years later. And, you know, it can get, I don't know, expensive, I guess, from a litigation test standpoint to obtain medical records and opinions and that kind of thing to say, well, this document is valid when this document isn't valid. And then, you know, if the ultimate determination is, well, this person doesn't have capacity to execute this power of attorney, or if they didn't when they did, well, then how do we find the decision maker for them if they can't name somebody for themselves? And that's where guardianship comes in. You know, somebody could file a petition for guardianship, so we can find a person, we can give a person authority to make decisions for them, but then it's the court deciding that, or it's a stranger professional, or it's somebody you don't necessarily want, or you wouldn't have necessarily named when you had the capacity to make those decisions for yourself. So that's why it's very important, just even if you think it's not going to happen to you, even if you think, well, you know, I'm only 50, I've got a long time before I start losing my marbles. You know,
and I think there's also that element of emotion, right? When there's more than one child, and or you know, more than one family member, and then in the midst of that, there's all of these emotional components to decision making that I think really stir up a whole different pot of goodies that can be avoided if it's legally written out. So what's the age group that you suggest people start really taking this type of action seriously? Is it 35, 45, 55, or is there even a magic number, or what do you think?
Well, I would say as an adult, anytime you're an adult, it's important to have the directives and the financial powers of attorney in place. If
Because
you
you
don't have
just
any,
never know.
yeah, you never know. And if you
Yeah,
don't have any assets, you don't need a will, right?
right.
But, once you start to accumulate assets like a home and, a little bit of cash in the bank and, a pretty decent amount, I mean, you should really consider executing a
Yeah,
will or a trust-based plan, but definitely as an adult person, I mean, you can be a young person and be in an accident, and
right.
it's good to have those documents in place so that somebody is designated to
Yeah,
make decisions for you if you're not able to do it. And a lot of times I was asked to be guardian for folks who were in the hospital, who were intensive care, who were young, who were on life
yeah,
support. And
right.
really, essentially, it was to make the decision whether or not that person should be on life support. I kind of turned those cases down because who wants to make, I mean, that's a tough decision.
Yeah,
It's a tough decision to make for a family member. It's a tough decision to make for a stranger, but
it's a tough decision all the way around, I
it does
think.
happen. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
good to have those documents in place.
Well, I mean, you're inspiring me to rethink, because we've had one done at a really young age too, because we were advised at a younger age as a business owner. But it makes me think like, wait, do my children, because all my children are grown now, right? Do my children have that in place? I wanted to bring this conversation because I think it's really important, as much as we're all about success and future and, planning out these extravagant forward thinking spaces in our life. What we sometimes can neglect is the realities too. And I think we have to have a real good balance of both. You got to have a balance of both, like the things that need to be covered and the responsibilities from a legal perspective, and then also planning out a life that you want to create intentionally. But don't you think that kind of goes hand in hand anyways? Like you can't
Yeah.
really be free of creating this magnificent life if you're not kind of have that backup of, well, what happens if
Yeah.
it's cut short, or a hiccup shows up in a way. I
Yeah.
think
It's
that
part
this
of the
is
picture.
really, yeah, I think it's
Big
part of the
picture.
whole big, I agree with you. Well, I just want to thank you, first of all, for this opportunity to share your expertise and to share with us too that your story is so unique, right? That you've been in the industry, but now you made that decision at a later part of your life. And I mean, although I'm looking at you, I'm like, Holly, you don't look a day over 42. So I don't know what you're talking about, but
I'm 52.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But also that the definition of wealth for, as an industry that sort of is considered by the public is this higher end payday, right? That really, even though that is a part of it, that's not the whole picture, right? The
Yeah.
bigger picture is to cultivate a life worth living on all parts, that it's an impactful one for you and for the people you serve. I think that's always such a great part of the journey to share. Well, and so folks, if you're listening and you're interested in any more information, all of Holly's information will be in the show notes. And as we're posting this, we're going to have all of the ways that you can access her and access her information so that you can get started on making sure all of your legal matters are covered while you're also planning this amazing cruise that you might just go on in the next 6 months. Because again, from our legal representation here today, it is never too late and it's never too early. It's just always needs to be done. It should always something we should all have in our roster taken care of.
Yep. And I would just like to add, this is all really general information, but yeah, if you have requests for specific information about your situation, check me out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Holly is on my resource list of lawyers, and I say that with a lot of conviction because the lawyer we had used, he recently passed away. Actually, the year you graduated from law school. So it's almost like, you came into my life at just the right time. So I will definitely have my children reach out to you and get that going for them because they also live in different states. So I think it's important for them to have some sort of documentation. And for our audience,
a lawyer in their state.
Yay. Hey. And for the rest of you who are listening, who are really seeking a more specified information or just to get to know Holly more, and if those are your circumstances of taking care of your elderly parents, there's no one else I would trust with that than Holly. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for this opportunity. And until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Holly, and we'll see you soon.
Then Lead Her Biz Academy is the online business education platform for you. Our strategically minded and purpose-driven approach will equip you with the tools, knowledge, and support you need to build a successful business and achieve your goals. Now, why women specifically? Because when women earn more money, we not only have more influence and choices, but we also create opportunities for others. And building a successful business allows us to support those we love and the causes we care about most. At Lead Her Biz Academy, we understand that women are already strong. That's why we focus on helping women unlock their authentic power and their capacity to attract wealth and impact other women. We believe that feminine presence is the key to unlocking your full potential as a successful female entrepreneur. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level and unlock your authentic power, join us at Lead Her Biz Academy. Let's make an impact and build profitable businesses together.
Thank you for tuning in to the Evolution of the Fempreneur podcast, where we empower and support women on their entrepreneurial journeys. We hope you found value in today's episode and feel inspired to take action towards your goals.
At Lead Her Biz Academy, we believe that every woman has a potential to achieve her dreams and create a successful business. Our community of like-minded women provides a supportive space for learning, growing, and connecting with other fempreneurs. If you're already on your entrepreneurial journey and seeking to take your business to the next level, consider joining Lead Her Biz Academy today. Our programs, courses, and resources are designed to help you develop the skills, mindset, and strategies you need to succeed in your entrepreneurial endeavors. Thank you again for listening to the Evolution of the Fempreneur podcast. We'll be back soon with more insights and inspiration to help you thrive in your business and life.